What's going on, boys and girls? Welcome to the UFC 311 recap. We'll touch on a lot of different things in today's video. Obviously, we'll go over the fights. I watched basically all of them fully fledged. Now, there was NFL football that took a little bit away from the viewing experience for the prelims of UFC 311, but still saw a good majority of them, had a good idea of what happened at every fight. We'll go over my bets. We had a great gambling night. So basically, we went 6-0 on bets that were under plus 400, and then we went 0-4 on bets like long shot bets where there weren't many units played, for basically a 6-unit profit on the night with only about 10 bets. So a very, very great night for us, and a very awesome main fight card. And even the prelims were exciting with a lot of unpredictable wins, some that were completely shocking for me, some that could have been expected in hindsight. But let's start top to bottom when it comes to the pay-per-view. Islam Makhachev defeated Renato Moicano basically as a lot of people expected. Saw a lot of the gambling community kind of put their chips on Renato Moicano surviving a little bit past what was expected because, again, he was training for Beneil Dariush, so you don't think cardio would have been a big issue for him. But first round, Islam Makhachev on the feet, they're trading a little bit. It was honestly not too... The fight was pretty close when the stand-up was going on. Renato Moicano almost looked like he dropped him. The commentators did advise that it was a slip, but when Islam went for the takedown, he started to go to work, and Renato Moicano's jiu-jitsu proved to be a more of offensive jiu-jitsu style, not defensive, because Islam locks up a Darce like almost immediate. The first scramble, locks up the Darce, forces Renato Moicano to tap in the first round. A little bit disappointing for Money Moicano, because now he really has to restart the trek to get to the title. Whereas this Beneil Dariush fight, if he were to win, he probably would have had a pretty significant and long training camp for this fight for the championship. But I don't think in any world Islam Makhachev is probably losing to anyone in the lightweight division. So even with a full training camp, I don't know if Renato would have even had a better chance there. So Islam makes the minus 1200 line look perfectly set. Does it in under a round, so the under hits, and Islam Makhachev, the longest title defense streak in the lightweight division. He moves to 27-1. With a majority of his fights now being in the UFC, Islam's record is uber impressive. He's quick on the feet, and his grappling is way more exciting than a lot of grapplers we see because he looks for the finish. He looks for ground and pound. He's confident, strong. Islam Makhachev, one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world by far. Probably number one pound for pound in my opinion, due to activity, willingness, all those good intangibles that you want in your pound for pound number one. Co-main event, probably the most exciting fight of the night when you bring in stakes with the in-cage action. Merab Dvalishvili showcased that gas tank perfectly. We had two bets in this fight. We had Merab to win at plus 230. That cashes. We have Umar Magomedov under 107.5 significant strikes. He was at 62 going into the fourth round, so basically needed to land 4 rounds of strikes in the fifth round. Merab goes crazy in that fifth round. I thought the showboating was getting a little bit excessive from Merab, especially in that fifth round. That was pretty close. Thank God Merab lands that massive right hand towards the end of that fifth round, because in my opinion, it was a close round. There wasn't conclusive evidence either way. The third and fourth round were clear Merab, but Umar and Merab weren't doing too much in that fifth round. I thought it was razor close, but Merab ends up picking up a massive title defense. This was huge. Probably 80% of the fan base was on Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar Nurmagomedov, undefeated, comes in with an extremely impressive record. But that fifth round, Umar Nurmagomedov outlanded Merab. The only difference in that fifth round were, first off, the takedowns. Merab was kind of just taking him down to show him that he could. Wasn't landing damage off of them, though, even though the takedowns were aggressive and definitely could be considered damage in my opinion. But in that fifth round, Umar Nurmagomedov, 18 significant strikes to Merab's 14. The only thing about those 14 is he had a massive right hand in that fifth round, which probably swung it for him. And then, interestingly enough, the judge that gave him the first round, Merab actually landed more significant strikes and at a better rate in the first round. But I think in the first round, Umar, even though landing less significant strikes, his significant strikes had a little bit more impact, because not all significant strikes are equal. I think Umar's had more impact in the first round, but Merab's had more impact in that fifth round. And I was just kind of sweating because I had Merab to win. I was sweating with all the showboating he was doing. He was landing takedowns, doing no damage off of them, backing up, celebrating that he got the takedown. I didn't know how the judges were going to react to that. odds were clearly favoring Merab to win the fight. They clearly knew what the judges were kind of going to side with, because I think he was at like minus 800 in that 5th round. So Merab Dvalishvili proves he's going to be a dominant champion. He really, the only way to beat this guy, in DC's wise words, you got to separate him from consciousness, or he just keeps coming. He's an absolute machine. Merab Dvalishvili, a dog, gets it done, defends his bantamweight title for the first time, and he looks extremely impressive. So now we're probably setting up for O'Malley versus Merab 2, and Umar Magomedov is going to have to go back and get a couple more ranked wins, in my opinion, because of the fact he really didn't have too many impressive wins going into this fight. I could see the argument being made that he was kind of gifted a title shot because of how we think of his skill set. He's a very skilled fighter, but I don't think he did. He clearly didn't do as much as Merab did before Merab got his title shot. Still, Umar, a great fighter. He showed in the 1st and 2nd round. Great distance management. Clearly has the Dagestani wrestling ability, and he's so fast. He's a bantamweight version of these guys, so he's so fast. Like when Merab was shooting and Umar was scrambling to Merab's back, that's impressive as hell. Umar Magomedov is no joke. I don't doubt that he's going to continue to stack up wins and get back into the title picture. His gas tank kind of failed him a little bit. He also mentioned the broken hand. I don't know how much of that actually had an impact, but great win for Merab Dvalishvili. Then the fight that I was most anticipated for, it delivered. For the most part, Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. Both guys got their licks in. I'm surprised that Yuri won the fight on a counter. That was very interesting. Felt like Yuri early on was getting more success with when he was going first. When he was lunging in with big shots, that was the first knockdown in the 1st round. But then in that 3rd round, the beautiful head movement to pull his head out of range and then come in with the combination that puts Jamal down and is ultimately the strikes that start the beginning of the end. Yuri Prochazka is an absolute savage. He's in such a weird spot now where Alex has beaten him twice, and clearly I don't think there's really any chance, in my opinion, that Yuri beats Alex. So I think Yuri's going to closely watch Pereira versus Ankalaev at UFC 313. If Ankalaev wins, Yuri's right back in the title picture. If Pereira wins, it's kind of just a situation that Yuri kind of needs to wait for Alex to leave the division, because unless Yuri goes completely grappling heavy in another fight with Alex, he gets cracked too much. And if Alex lands those shots, he puts Yuri's lights out. He's proven to do it. So he's in a weird spot. Jamal Hill is going to have to fight down in the top 10, in my opinion now. Still a great performance. Nothing to hang your head about. I love Jamal Hill's performance. He made a fan out of me with that fight, and I'm excited to see where he goes next. Jailton Almeida defeats Sergey Spivak. We got some good grappling scrambles in this fight, honestly, for the heavyweight division. There's little you ask for, and this fight delivered a lot in that 1st round. Jailton Almeida, ultimately, after the scrambles, they return to their feet late 1st round, and he lands a crazy uppercut. Follows that up. Spivak looks like he kind of gave it up. And Jailton Almeida, who I thought was going to win the fight, earns the victory. I picked Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida gets it done. Didn't have bets on Yuri or Jailton Almeida. And then Renier de Ritter versus Kevin Holland. This is where I have my other bet. So I had 2 long shots. De Ritter, 2nd and 3rd round. They were sitting around plus 800, plus 1200. I think I want to start a new segment. Just shocking betting lines that we could look back in hindsight and just howl at. How was De Ritter submission plus 330? That was my bet. Greater than De Ritter TKO. That was freaking crazy to me. De Ritter, a majority of his wins are submission wins. Kevin Holland at middleweight has shown no ability to stop takedowns or defend submissions. Crazy line. I'm happy I capitalized. I wish I capitalized more now in hindsight. For how dumb I believe this line was set, I didn't put enough money on it. De Ritter still pays off for me. A half a unit at plus 330 still was a significant payout, but just it should have been obvious. I get Kevin Holland, very dangerous when the fight's on the beat. De Ritter knew that. That's why he shot a takedown so early. But Holland has really shown no ability to stop takedowns. He is a little wild when he's on his back. Like, I was a little bit scared with the up kicks, elbows, and even hammer fists from bottom. But De Ritter, smart, calm, just takes his time, shows that there's levels to the grappling game, and gets Kevin Holland out of there in under 1 round. I wish he got a submission in the 2nd round from a betting perspective, but still, to hit another plus 330. At this point, we're 3-0 going top to bottom. Then, fraud check, I wouldn't say. Looking at these odds after the fight, again, all in hindsight here, Peyton Talbat is a special mixed martial artist with a huge ceiling, high potential. But even in his tape, when I was doing a career highlight video, he's well-rounded, but he could definitely be taken down, and he's definitely been in some wars on the regional scene. 2 UFC fights against the Simon fight was the super impressive one for me. The Yanis Gamori TKO was less impressive for me. I didn't look at Gamori as much of a fighter as I did Cameron Simon. The way Talbat dominated Simon was probably the reason he got such a favorable line here, but Raoni Barcelo's a veteran. Went to the spots that he knew he would have success, put a pace on Peyton Talbat that kind of gassed him. And if Peyton Talbat was on bottom, he was just getting dominated. So Barcelo's, we missed the underdog play here. It's a disappointing miss, but still, plus 600, plus 700, crazy. And a second fighter on the card loses their undefeated record. Then we get into the short notice, the back-to-back short notice fights on complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Azamat Bekov defeats Zach Reyes with absolutely brutal ground and pound. This was impressive. He came in, probably knew that he had to get the fight out of there early because, again, he's coming in on short notice, less than 10 days. He still trains at a great gym, an American Top Team, so you'd expect him to have the skill set to try and get this fight done early. Zach Reyes was dangerous early on, but Bekov starts to land those big shots. You could argue back of the head, but still puts Reese's lights out. It's hard to not hit him in the back of the head when he's kind of ducking to the side. Still, you can make the argument, but still, Bekov, short notice. That is a short notice debut that you want to have. Wonderful, wonderful TKO win. And then opposite end of the spectrum, Billy Elana versus Bogdan Gusov. Elana, the short notice fighter. Smart game plan early on. I don't know why I didn't expect it. Elana early on in his regional career definitely went. He grappled early on in his career. More recent fights, was a defensive grappler. He was defending against guys with jiu-jitsu skills. Bogdan Gusov does not present grappling threats. So Elana takes the fight to the mat, immediately gets his back, starts to land pity-patter significant strikes. Now, I want to mention in this fight, I'm sweating a little bit because I have over 1.5 rounds at plus 105, and then I have Elana significant strikes over 19.5. That line is hilarious. We'll get to it at the end of the fight. But first round going on, Elana on his back, landing pitter-patter shots from the back, looking to try and get the guillotine choke. Bogdan Gusov fighting really, really well. Impressive, defending the submission skills, showing skill set that he really needs to work on, in my opinion. But he did a great job defending. And somehow Elana, after these exchanges, exhausts himself. So Bogdan, end of the first round, reverses position, starts to land some ground and pound. And in the first anomaly in mixed martial arts that I've never seen before, Gusov gets the submission locked in. Beltran, for some reason, doesn't go for the hands and indicate the round is over when the bell goes. He lets the submission go in for about 3 to 4 seconds after, and then pulls Gusov off. And interestingly, during those 4 seconds after the round, Elana submits. So real interesting end to the first round. Beltran, I think, failed in his job in this spot to be more aware to stop the submission attempt at the end of the round. So Elana gets a couple more seconds with a tight rear naked choke that clearly was cutting off air because Elana tapped. But in the second round, Elana, exhausted, gets us the significant strikes that we need, which was absolutely perfect. Going into the second round, Elana had 8 significant strikes, and during the time that he's exhausting himself, he landed 12 to land us at 20 significant strikes for the fight, and he survives 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So a minute over what we needed him to survive. So we cashed both those bets, which was awesome. And at this point, 5-0 on bets under plus 400. We hit the positive bet on the over 1.5. We hit the slightly under the pick'em line of Elana over 19.5 significant strikes. He falls to 7-2 now. I don't think he's going to get another shot immediately in the UFC, so he's going to have to go back to the regional scene and start to stack more wins, in my opinion, because again, his tape was also a little bit lacking, a lot of backward movement. His most recent fight prior to this one was probably his best knockout. Again, I mentioned this a couple times in different videos this week. I don't think he gets another shot in the UFC. He gassed pretty badly. Again, short notice, so kind of expected. Impressive takedown and game plan in the early part of the fight. He's a very smart fighter. I don't doubt that he could get wins outside the top 15 in the UFC, but he does still need to develop his skill set a little bit more. I expect to see him back on the regional scene after this event, but Bogdan Gusov ends up finishing him in the second round via a guillotine choke. Surprisingly, I don't know why Beltran didn't step in when Elana was just kind of waving him on, and Gusov really just needed to land a punch or two because Elana wasn't even standing. He was so tired, but still a good win for Bogdan Gusov. Grant Dawson fight went pretty much as I expected. Diego, dangerous fighter. Even on the mat early on in this fight, he was looking for submissions and all that stuff. But Grant Dawson, even in the striking was a little bit surprising for me for Grant Dawson. He was striking well. But the grappling of Dawson, the forward pressure, he was able to land the takedowns. And once he's able to land the takedowns, there's really nothing you can do from bottom at that point. Grant Dawson, pretty dominant, unanimous decision win, getting back on track from his knockout loss. So good for Grant Dawson there. Then Eileen Perez, it's a big underdog number. At this point of the card, I don't know how much I was really watching. I watched the Rinya Nakamura fight, even the Soai fight, which I had a bet on. I hardly got to tune into. But still, Eileen Perez, great win here. Improves to 12-2. Defeats a fighter that was expected to beat her. I expect Eileen Perez to be fighting near the top 5 now, man. She has been putting on good performances, big wins. I'd like to see her probably go against like a Tracy Cortez because they kind of had beef recently. So that would be an interesting fight. And it's good that Perez continues the winning streak and she improves to 12-2. That was a great win. And then probably the shock of the night for me. When Gafarov defeats Rinya Nakamura, I said Nakamura was going to grapple. Completely wrong. This was a stand-up kickboxing fight, and Moeen Gafarov just did a little bit more, which was enough to defeat Rinya Nakamura. I don't know if the high fives and the hugging played a little bit into Moeen Gafarov not drawing a lot of Nakamura's skill set in this fight. I'm shocked Nakamura didn't go to the wrestling. The guy was a wrestling champion in under 23. We did the video on him for highlights. Little bit shocking that he didn't go to it. And Gafarov was just able to out kickbox the Japanese sensation. So he's another undefeated fighter to lose his O. And this was just shocking for me. I don't doubt Rinya Nakamura is going to come back stronger than ever. And that he still has so much potential. And he's only like 4 years into his pro MMA career. But still, this one was a shocking loss for me. I was extremely surprised that he lost in this spot. But Moeen Gafarov, nothing but love for him. His kickboxing is wonderful. Spinning kicks, head kicks, all that stuff is just awesome to watch. And I thought Nakamura was going to try and get away from that, and he did not. So it was good for Gafarov. And honestly, Nakamura's speed played little to no factor in this fight, which again was shocking to me as well. So this was a great win for Moeen Gafarov. Bernardo Soai defeats Ricky Turcios in what was a great fight as well. I watched a little bit of the third round after the fact. I didn't see much of this fight. I had Ricky over half a takedown, which he did get in the third round. Kiss, beautiful. That was plus 215. And then I had Ricky round 2, round 3, which were 2 long shots. I think that was plus 1800, plus 2500. Obviously, both those miss with Soai winning by decision. But Bernardo Soai looked like he got kind of the cardio issues under control, or even if you want to call them cardio issues, which is impressive because the guy is explosive. He's a great athlete. He trains hard. I expect him to do big things in this division as he continues to develop his skill set. So great win from Bernardo Soai. I predicted him to win the fight. He gets it done. I was just hoping that Ricky would come on a little bit more for the gambling sake and the odds, but this is a great win for the All-Stars MMA fighter. And then finally, Tagir Ulanbekov defeated Clayton Carpenter in what was an awesome fight. This was another high-level flyweight fight. The takedowns were on display for both fighters. The stand-up was on display for both fighters. Scrambles. Just an awesome fight altogether. But the Russian Tagir Ulanbekov does just enough. Initiating the grappling more than Clayton Carpenter did. Getting top position more than Clayton Carpenter did. Keeping the stand-up and damage pretty much even a little bit in the side of Ulanbekov. The Russian prospect wins here. 16-2 he improves to. This was a wild prospect fight, honestly, to be the first fight of the night. Tagir Ulanbekov to 16-2. And Clayton Carpenter was the first, but in this video, I guess the final fighter to lose his undefeated record. But Clayton Carpenter, another fighter with uber potential in mixed martial arts. He's been fighting for so long. You can see that in his skill set. He is a wonderful watch, and I'm excited to see where the American goes. But that was UFC 311, breaking down every fight from what I saw. If we go over my predictions that I did at the end of the live stream and in a video for you guys, took Tagir, took Soai, Nakamura was my first loss, Rosa was my second, so 2-2. Took Dawson, took Gusov, so that was 4-2. I took Zachary Reese, so that was a loss. So 4-3. I took Peyton Talbat 4-4, and then I went perfect except for Yuri Prochazka on the main card. I took Jamal Hill. I thought Jamal Hill's power was going to be a little bit more impactful. It was great in the second round, but Yuri just so unorthodox, so hard to hit. His head movement was on point in this fight. it was just a great fight card. So I'm excited to see where they go. I'll probably end up doing tomorrow a video on who I'd like to see each fighter fight next. But that'll do it for today's recap video. If you guys enjoyed, remember, smash that like button. As for the gambling side of things, these are the results from UFC 311 and where we start the first event for the gambling of 2025. We're starting it with a clean slate. First event recorded today. That was a wonderful, wonderful night for the gambling. We read most of the fights that we bet well, and we did everything we wanted to do. And so good fight card, good results in the gambling side, good results in the prediction side of things. Just an overall awesome night. Looking forward to UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia. Adesanya takes on Imavov. I will definitely be looking at some of the fights on that card, so stay tuned for content there. But I will see you in the next video, guys. Peace out.